Hi everyone, welcome to Career Launcher. My name is Abhilasha and we are doing preparation for CAT. So for CAT 2026, this is VARC. Today we are covering reading comprehension session number 8, which is on current affairs. So let's not waste any time. Let's get started. All right, guys. So here is something very interesting. Race to 99 percentile, which is the online version, is coming soon. If you wish to join up, and you should, if you're really serious about your CAT preparation, do join us on 1st and 2nd of August. All you need to do is use this QR code, scan this QR code, and you're set to go. Okay, so do this, please. Also, I hope you have already enrolled for CDC 2, which is the open mock, and that is happening on the 8th and 9th of August. Do make sure you have joined if you haven't registered till now. All right, let's take a look at our passage for the day. So international trade negotiation between India and the US have entered a phase of heightened uncertainty following the revival of aggressive tariff signaling under the Trump administration. So there is a lot of problem that is happening. According to trade think tank Global Trade Research Initiative, GTRI, India may face the risk of entering a one-sided trade agreement if negotiations proceed without adequate safeguards against unilateral tariff action. So there may be a problem. The concerns stem not only from the direct economic implications of tariffs, but also from the broader instability created by their legal and political ambiguity. So it's not just that the tariffs have a direct economic implication, but also that there may be broader instability because of their legal and political ambiguity. So there is a problem. At the heart of the issue, so what is the actual issue? Is the unpredictable nature of tariff policy. So tariff policy is not predictable, and that's the problem. Recent legal challenges in the US have questioned the legitimacy of certain tariff measures imposed under emergency trade provisions. So they may not be legitimate also, and that's a problem. This has created a situation in which tariffs may be simultaneously active, contested, and reversible. So there is a problem. So tariffs could be active, they could be contested, they could be changed also. So how do you know what is the tariff, and how do you plan your policy, and how do you do your business? In such an environment, long-term trade commitments become inherently fragile because one negotiating party may be binding itself to conditions that the other can alter or withdraw unilaterally. So if one party can just move out of it, can change, then how is this a fair trade agreement? It is not. Now, GTRI's caution is rooted in the asymmetry of negotiating power. So negotiating power is disbalanced. The US has a lot of it, the other countries have a lot less. So while India seeks expanded access to the US market, the US retains the ability to leverage tariff threats as a bargaining tool. So they can use the fact that they will impose bigger tariffs, and that's the bargaining tool. This dynamic risks producing agreements where concessions are front-loaded on the Indian side while reciprocal benefits remain uncertain or conditional. So this situation, this dynamic where the US has the ability to leverage tariff threats will create agreements where India gives a lot of concession, but the US side doesn't. Okay. Historically, such asymmetry has often resulted in trade deals that favor the more economically dominant partner, particularly when negotiations occur under time pressure or political uncertainty. So when there is time pressure, when there is political uncertainty, such negotiations will favor the more economically dominant, stronger country. So in this case, the US. However, the debate is not solely about economic vulnerability. So it's not just that economic problem. Proponents of engagement argue that trade deals, even imperfect ones, can integrate India more deeply into global supply chains and provide export opportunities in sectors such as manufacturing and services. So there may be a greater interest for India. They suggest that tariff volatility, while disruptive, may also redirect global investment flows towards economies perceived as relatively stable and strategically diversified. So because there is tariff volatility in one part of the world, the others which are relatively stable, people may just want to connect and bring investment into those countries. So that could be an opportunity for India. Now, critics counter that such optimism underestimates the structural risk of dependency. So, you are underestimating how dependent you are on other countries. If tariff regimes can be altered unilaterally, one sidedly, then market access becomes dependent, contingent rather than guaranteed. So, there is a dependency that if they will do something, then you will do something. Now, in this view, integration without institutional safeguards may expose India to recurring renegotiations under unequal conditions. So, maybe every time India will have to discuss the tariffs, renegotiate, and the condition remain unequal. So, its long term bargaining position is effectively weakened. So, there is a problem. Now, this situation also highlights a broader shift in global trade governance. So, there is a shift. The traditional assumption that multilateral rules constrain unilateral action is increasingly being challenged by the resurgence of protectionist policies because bigger countries are becoming more protectionist. So, therefore, multilateral country agreements will rule unilateral action is not really true. So, one country may just one sidedly decide to do something and nobody else can control them. So, as a result, countries like India are forced to balance immediate economic opportunities against long term strategic autonomy. So, that's a problem. Now, ultimately, the GTRI warning reflects a deeper dilemma. So, there is a deeper problem. Now, the dilemma is whether to prioritize short term gains through rapid trade alignment or to insist on stricter conditions that protect against future policy unpredictability. So, do you want stricter conditions so that there is a predictable future, and or do you want to just prioritize short term gains? The resolution of this dilemma, how India will handle this, will likely shape not only the structure of India-US trade relations, but also India's broader approach to economic diplomacy in this increasingly fragmented global order. So that's a very interesting passage. The situation that is there currently in the world and the US versus India. So that's your passage. All right. Let's take a look at our. Okay, guys, so this is very interesting. Please remember to experience CAT before actual CAT. So like I was telling you that Open CDC 2 is on August 8 and 9, where you will be able to face your preparation, your exam head on. So remember, when you're writing a mock at home, your score is around 102 or something. But when you write it at the center, the score goes down to around 70, 75, 80. Now, the difference is not that your preparation has changed. It's the actual CAT pressure. So how do you handle this thing? How do you get used to it? By writing tests in an actual center. Now, Open CDC 2 is happening in 40 plus test centers across the country, where the actual CAT slots of 8:30 a.m., 12:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. are happening. You will get authentic A5 booklets, exactly the CAT style, and you will have IDs and admit cards just the way CAT does. So if you haven't yet registered, you can register right away. Okay. Now, some of you will say, how do you know this is the score or this is the performance? This is something that happened for a real student, one of our students, right? So, all right. Now, if you wish to register, you can use this QR code to scan it and then you can register. Okay. Please make sure you're doing it. It will give you a very good idea of where you're at and how much work do you need to do. All right, let's take a look at our questions for the day. So the first question, which of the following can most reasonably be inferred from the passage? Take a minute, read it, and then we will try and answer this question. Okay, so let's take a look at the options. India is certain to suffer trade losses if it signs any agreement with the US under current conditions. Okay. Tariff uncertainty weakens the reliability of long-term trade agreements between the countries. Yes, looks very good to me. The US has completely abandoned multilateral trade frameworks in favor of bilateral deals, but this is not mentioned in the passage. Also, completely abandoned is an extreme option, so therefore I can eliminate C. India lacks any strategic leverage in negotiations with the US. Again, any is also an extreme option, so therefore D is also not a good choice. Between A and B, India is certain to suffer trade losses is again something that won't work, so best answer will be B. All right, remember the BEAST framework can be used to eliminate your options very, very well. Okay, so question number 2, which of the following best reflects the author's implied view on global trade governance? So what is the author's implied view means what do you understand? What is he trying to say? Existing trade rules are sufficient to prevent unilateral economic action by powerful nations. Well, he has not said that. He has said that they are not, because unilateral action is just happening and multilateral action is not able to stop it. Global trade is becoming more predictable due to increasing institutional cooperation. This is false because the passage has said exactly the opposite. It is becoming more and more unpredictable. Trade governance is under strain due to rising protectionism and weakening multilateral constraints. Yes, this is something that the author has said. Developing countries are now dictating the terms of global trade negotiations. No, it is not developing countries because the economies are balanced the other way. So it's not D. So best answer will be option number C. Excuse me. Let's look at question number 3. The argument of GTRI is most vulnerable to criticism on the grounds. So GTRI said that trade is not really working in our favor. Correct? So let's take a look and find out what is this passage saying. So it assumes tariff volatility will necessarily disadvantage India without considering adaptive strategies. It ignores the possibility that India may benefit more from restricted trade access, overestimates the stability of US domestic legal institutions. That's irrelevant for us. Assumes all trade agreements are inherently unequal regardless of context. Well, no. Look at this. The best answer would be options B, because author has not thought of the fact that India may have some benefit from restricted trade access. So best answer B. Okay, which of the following would most weaken the central concern raised in the passage? So you have to define the central concern and then weaken it. The central concern, of course, we've understood. Let's take a look at the option. India successfully negotiates strong dispute resolution mechanism in trade agreements. Okay, if that happens, then the central concern could be weakened. The US economy becomes more dependent on imports, but they could still place tariffs. So D won't work. Global supply chains increasingly bypass both India and US. Well, then that is also irrelevant for us. Tariff policies become even more unpredictable, so that is going to support the central concern. So only one that will actually weaken the central concern, that is GTRI is saying that India will actually end up into a disbalanced trade agreement with the US. So if India successfully negotiates a strong dispute resolution mechanism in the trade agreement, then it will be strengthened, right? And it will find the balance will not be as against India as it would be. So therefore, this will actually weaken the central concern raised in the passage, and that's going to be your correct answer. All right, guys, the CAT 2026 MBA test series, which is closest to the exam center according to students, is already live. You can join us, put yourself to the test today, enroll now. Remember, Open CDC 2 happens on 8th and 9th of August. You can join. For joining this test series, all you need to do is scan this QR code and you're all set to go. Okay. All right, guys, that brings me to the end of today's session. Remember, if you have any doubts, all you need to do is drop the doubts in the chat below so that I can answer them. Also, remember, keep practicing, keep preparing. The ZAT notification is out, so all you need to do is start by filling up your ZAT notification. We've also put out a video on that. If this helped, remember to like the session, subscribe to the channel, and share the session with a friend so that they can also use this. To enroll at a Career Launcher Center, 8130-038-836. Remember, we have online and offline courses. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.